How do we wanna start things out here?
We'll turn it over to you,
Well,
Lynn, and tell us
I'm
where
gonna
we're
go
at.
ahead and say that maybe, is there a sign-in sheet that you brought that is going around there?
We can surely do that.
I've got something I'll do too.
That probably would be best, that way everyone knows. I can start off, I'm Davina with Community Development Partners, I'm doing the grant admin on the project. And just have everyone mention who all's here, so we just know.
Okay, I'll go second. I'm Warren Ewell, project manager of this project for the past,
Check you on there.
5 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm Greg Khrushchev's also with GRW, and I've been assisting Warren with a lot of the bidding related stuff as well as putting the project together.
I'm Lisa Dunn, I'm with TDOT State Aid Office.
Okay.
Let's go around the room.
Yeah, let's just go around the room, why don't we?
Stan Fowl, City Administrator, City of LaFollette.
Cliff Jennings, Mayor of the City of LaFollette.
Wayne Kidd, City of LaFollette.
Stephanie Solomon, excuse me, City of LaFollette.
Terry Sweat, Finance Director, City of LaFollette.
Judy Brown, Administrative Assistant, City of LaFollette.
Kobe Heron, Superintendent of Follett Water.
Ronald McGee, LUB.
Okay,
Hey Warren, just for your information, it was really hard to hear a lot of those folks other than yourself. So.
I know, well, there's quite a bit of space between us all here, we're spread out,
Yeah.
so, but we will have a sign-in sheet, everybody should sign in, and, we can go with that.
But yeah, just more for, for future conversation, if somebody's doing a lot of talking, if the mic helps, I don't know how that'll work.
Okay, yeah, we are on a cord here, so, short cord, but we have a mic in case we need to use it. I guess, to start out, we have, we've got some ideas, to rebid the project, that we want to talk about here today. Sorry. And, one is, arranging, clearing of the trees, some on the right-of-way of the railroad and some adjacent to the railroad. I think we talked about this previously. Would the city like to maybe comment on how we want to get that accomplished? There's an environmental commitment that all the tree cutting has to be done between the months of October 15th and March 31st, I believe. And that puts some restrictions on what we believe the contractors were looking at when they bid this job the first time. And if we could get the trees cut before the project starts, we're thinking that might reduce risk on the contractor, and he might hopefully come in with a lower bid.
I've actually spoke with Public Works Director. He stated it wouldn't be an issue to remove those trees that's on the city side.
Yeah.
We were hoping that the county would be here and would give us some input on the county side of them clearing the county side.
Mm-hmm. So the city forces themselves would be clearing the trees on the, okay.
Yes.
I talked with Kelly Wisely with STV, that's a CSX consultant, on the drive down here today. And she said that they would probably have some problems if the city were to do the clearing themselves because of insurance coverage. And she said that they would need to grant right of entry, and the way she put it was right of entry on the railroad right of way to the city's contractor for cutting the trees down. So, I'm not sure what kind of, insurance requirements CSX would have to do that, but that seemed to be an issue with her. And I told her that I'd get back in touch with her, you know, after we have our meeting today.
Were they gonna have to do that with the original contractor? Were they gonna have a separate insurance with it being on city property? That don't make no sense.
No, it would just be insurance for work on the railroad right of way. And I'm not sure what the dollar amount would be. I'd have to find out.
Because our folks would be covered under our general liability anyway, would they not?
Are you saying that STV did, on behalf of CSX, did not want the city to do any tree cutting?
That is what I understood from my conversation, and she said that they wouldn't grant right of entry to not just the city, but in general, any small city, because they generally don't have enough insurance to cover what they require on the railroad side of things.
And the contractor would have more insurance than we would? That don't make any sense.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I don't know.
Who said this?
Her name is Kelly Wisely with STV.
She's handling all this stuff for CSX. They won't do anything until they talk to her.
So in other words, the 86,000,
Yeah.
plus they're wanting an additional 100 and whatever it was
For extra flagging,
for extra flagging.
and plus that. So in other words, we'd have to hire a contractor outside the city to do the tree cutting.
I don't know if I could get Kelly on the phone right now, but, should I try?
And Warren, I would think what's in the right of way, a railroad agreement is the liability. I can share my screen and show you.
What would it make a difference
That,
if a
I don't know if you guys
contractor
can
cut
see it,
them or
but-
we cut them?
Exhibit F is insurance requirements, commercial general liability.
Well, you know, a
I
contractor.
mean,
got
hang on,
more
Greg,
insurance
let me-
than we got.
Let me make sure we have the volume up here, so, all right, so go. Okay, go ahead.
And I'm just reading this exhibit F out of the railroad agreement. The insurance policies, agency and contractor, if and to the extent that either is performing work on either, that assumes that they allow it. Work on or about the railroad, CSXT properties shall procure and maintain the following insurance policies. Commercial general liability, that's $5 million. Statutory worker compensation and employer's liability, $1 million. Commercial automobile liability, not less than $1 million. Railroad protective liability, I'm sure this is their main concern, within limits of not less than $5 million combined single limit or bodily injury and or property damage per occurrence and an aggregate annual limit of $10 million. Which shall satisfy the following. CSX Transportation must be the named insured on the railroad protective insurance policy. So I don't know if you need a special rider for this particular instance or how you go about doing that. But the contractor would have to have this, and I'm not sure what that entails for the city.
We'll have to get some clarification on this, but, it does throw a wrench into things if the city has to hire a contractor to do this, and then if the contractor doesn't have the insurance either, what do we do? You know, so.
Well, the contractor has to, it's part of the contract.
Okay, I see.
You don't approve them until they have that. That's why we include it in the contract. But the question is whether the special to name the railroad the insured on some kind of rider. I don't know, that could be contentious. You need the legal administrators, I guess, to look into that.
Why would the CSX have to be named as insured when they're not doing anything and they have nothing down there except the track?
The track and the railroad, this is just what's in the railroad agreements. It's just their standard way of doing business. I'm not sure, I'm not an expert on this, I'm just reading what's in the railroad agreement between the city and the CSX.
So if we do, I don't understand the purpose of rebidding it if we're going right back to the same thing that we had. Do you? Because because for us to clean this out was supposed to cut down on the new bid that would be submitted in.
Right.
Is that not true?
That is true.
Casey?
So if that being the case, your bid's gonna come in higher this time than it come in the last time. That's only common sense.
How many trees and how long would it take? I'm just curious.
I've not been there and looked at it in a long time, I don't know.
You don't? Okay.
Now I'm gonna look at it.
Well, if the city cannot do it due to the insurance restrictions, I guess ideally, in order to gain this advantage of clearing the trees early, we would look, is there a way to, if you already had a clearing contractor or you did a small initial contract to get the clearing done out of the way. And the purpose and the point, in order to reduce the cost, is so that the clearing and the 2 or 3 or week that it takes to clear the trees, the railroad flagger is used for that. But then the contractor who's gonna build the project, he doesn't have to piggyback his railroad flagging time to build the bridge on this environmental aspect from a time frame, because contractors working over railroads, rightly so, do not want to bring a railroad flagman on board and send them away for a month and then try to get them back, because it doesn't usually work that way, because it's not that easy to work with a railroad. You never know when you can get them back. So the ones I've talked to, and in my previous experience, once you get the railroad flaggers on board, they want to finish the job. So they look at that as, if you bring them in before the March deadline to clear trees, that starts their clock for finishing the project. So we're trying to separate those two things and get,
Right.
the week or less time to clear the trees out of the way, whether it's the city, the county, a separate contract that the city is doing, or whatever, but split it completely away from the bridge construction project.
Well, has it been determined already that the city has such restrictions that the city cannot cut the trees? Who determined that?
I don't think it's totally written in ink, on that subject, on that issue. I'd like to try to call Kelly wisely and bring her into this conversation if I get hold of her, because that's the first I'd heard anything about this, on the drive down here. But let me see if I can get her. Take a chance.
Okay, while you're doing that, Warren, I'll talk a little bit more, since the question was raised about reducing the costs and other aspects.
Yep.
And cut in if you get the call through.
Yeah, I will.
So, the other hope, and you're right, you never know where the bids are gonna go, but by making this one change, we also want to change how the contract is written. And I've talked a little bit to some of the folks, to Lisa, as well as some of the other folks at TDOT, about making, instead of having to fix a completion date for the contractor, to have, I guess the TDOT construction folks called it a working window. So you push the completion date further out, but the contractor gets to, when he starts working, he can push that off, and then he's got so many days to work. That way, contractor has a little bit of flexibility on when he can start and stop, so he can, if he's working on another project, he doesn't wanna stop, move some of his people up here to work on this project to be going back and forth. He'd like to say, okay, instead of starting in June, I'm gonna be available in July or August, start in August and work 240 days and complete it, or whatever date that is. So we think by doing that and making sure all the contractors know that, you may find, you said we'll find one contractor whose schedule works a little better. And I think that combined with some of these other changes with the railroad flagging is our best hope. We want to do everything we can to try to bring the prices down and giving the contractor the flexibility and not pinhole them into a certain schedule is the best way to go. Have any luck, Warren?
No, I got her voicemail, so, does everybody understand the calendar day idea that Greg was just talking about, where we, rather than, the way we went about it before, we just gave a hard deadline, which was 8 months down the road, and now if we move that deadline out considerably, that'd give the contractor a lot more time to schedule his work in, a lot of times, overlapping projects that would hinder him from getting the job done. But,
and it all ties into with the amount of time that he has a flagger on the project and scheduling that flagger, because
Right.
it's a critical thing. If he can't get it done in that amount of time, we don't want the risk to be on the city of them using more flagging time. But if the risk is on the contractor and thereby also on the city, then they're gonna inflate the risk. So, trying to bring all those things together as best as possible to reduce risk for everybody.
Is it gonna be an additional cost to the city and the county to have additional flag time?
yeah, we had proposed, 50 extra days beyond what we had in the initial bidding. We had 146 days in the railroad agreement.
Which is gonna be $100,000 on top of the 86,000 that we've already paid.
Right, that would,
Well, we've actually not paid it.
Well,
Yeah.
that we
Yeah,
will be
we'll have to
paying.
pay.
trying to look at my
Well-
figures, but you're right, Stan.
If you went with that, and then the bid comes in higher, that's just adding to the cost.
Absolutely,
of
that's what I'm
we don't-
saying.
The money we don't have.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
We still have the old railroad agreement, we hadn't thrown it out yet, at 146 days. That's still valid and signed, not been
Yeah,
changed.
and that wouldn't have to change. It was some of the comments we heard that, the contractors would like, those days to be in line with their actual work schedule too, if they needed that the whole time. So, the other part of that is if, there's verbiage in there that says if the contractor goes over the amount of, days that are scheduled, that they have to make up the difference, which is, protects the contractor, or protects the city
Hi,
on the front
thanks
end,
for calling back.
but
We're in the middle
on
of
the
the
other
meeting
hand,
here.
it also
And
increases the cost.
I wasn't totally,
But they would.
straight on everything that we had talked about. And I wonder if, I might bring you into our meeting here briefly, and you could help us with some questions we have. Okay, thanks a lot for calling back. Okay, you're on my cell phone, speakerphone, as loud as it will go.
Okay.
And, we're with, several, city officers here in the conference room. But I guess what we were concerned about was, for the city, they're interested in clearing the trees, of course, some of which are on the right of way, the railroad right of way. And you mentioned that there was an insurance requirement that you didn't think the city, or in general, a city would have that a contractor would have, that, you would only be able to grant right-of-way, entry to a contractor as opposed to the city. Now, is that, did I hear that correctly?
Well, in my past experience, normally cities and counties don't have the, I guess you would say, allotted insurance that's required to get onto CSX property.
Mhm.
And most contractors do. So normally when we have a right of entry for what you're doing, tree removal or whatever, it's normally the contract, or not the contract, the right of entry is with the contractor. Now, if the city has the appropriate insurance, we can do it with the city, but 9 times out of 10, the contractor's the one that has the appropriate insurance.
Okay. We were just going through the Robert agreement, confirm
Yeah, I
that.
believe it is 5 million, yeah.
So I wanna make sure I'm understanding this. If we
Yes.
have the correct coverage, we can clear that ourselves.
Well, sure, I mean, of course, if the right of entry wants to be with the county or the city, whichever, then sure, we can draft up the right of entry with the city or the county, that's not an issue. And then you would pay us for that, or pay upfront to CSX the monies for the flagging and obviously the administrative part of, for drafting up the agreement. Yeah, that's not an issue at all. I just in the past 8 years that I have done these, normally the counties or cities do not have that type of insurance.
Well, it may be smarter for us to have an additional coverage purchased than to send this out to another contractor, or let this contractor do it because of the fees. Do you care to email us those requirements?
Excuse me?
To email us those requirements on the liability that.
I can, and also, this is another option. I'm pretty sure the city or county can also do it, is you can also purchase an insurance, I believe it's the RPL policy. I have to double check, through CSX. They do, have that available.
Let me ask a question. This is Terry, the finance director. Are these trees on the right of way that we paid for CSX? Are they on the right of way of CSX? Then if it's on the right of way and we paid for it, why do we have to get a clearance for it?
Because we paid for it.
We've already paid the right of way.
That I cannot answer. I guess because if you want those trees removed, then you would have to remove them. CSX is not gonna remove trees.
We're saying that we
Well,
will remove them.
we're saying that, but we've already paid for 7 right of ways, which one of them is CSX. So if the trees are on CX right of way, why would you all be involved in it?
Now, okay, maybe I'm not exactly sure what you're saying, but
I
if you
think-
are on CSX's right of way, you will have to have protection. And then you will have to have a right of entry to get on their property.
Yeah, and I think what Terry's referring to, is the city has paid for aerial easements for the project, for the bridge over. That is, that's a payment that's necessary for the bridge itself, but it doesn't really change the fact that the CSX still owns the right of way.
Exactly.
Okay, I wanted to make sure about that.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So, Warren, I can send you the information I have for this right of entry
Okay,
and the requirements for the insurance.
okay, that'd be
And then
great.
however you would like to do it or handle it, that's totally up to you,
Okay.
Right of way.
okay? And,
Hey Warren, I'm not sure if everybody on phones and whatnot can hear, but
Hang on.
would, she mentioned in an agreement, we already have a standing agreement, would that not still be valid for the city to utilize to do this clearing? As long as they comply by that, which does have those insurance stipulations? I mean, that would be my assumption, that we don't have to recreate this agreement, at least at this point. Now, if changes down the road for the bigger contract need to be made, we could do that, but it'd be nice that we have this in place, that it stands for the subject work we're talking about on the trees.
Yeah, Kelly, we do, the city and, CSX have a signed agreement here, it's about a year old now, but,
Right.
so it does state the insurance requirements in the agreement.
Exactly.
Now, I mean, once you. And it mentions
I know
this,
the-
the
I know the
agency
agreement is
and the
executed.
contractor, if either is performing the work, so it assumes the city may be doing the work, based on that statement.
That was our understanding the whole time
Once
after
the
this.
agreement, you have the executed agreement, once the funds are in place, then, once everything is good to go with that, then you can, well, so obviously we'll still get a flagman, but you won't have to necessarily have the right of entry.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So,
But we will have to get the funds for the agreement.
okay,
We'll have to get a flagman, and that will be part of your agreement, that will come out of your flagging
yeah,
from
right,
your overall project.
okay.
Let me ask you, if we've got the easement, so the contractors can work on the property, how are you saying that we don't have right of entry to it?
I'm not saying you don't, but right now, you don't have any, we have not received the funds for that construction agreement, am I correct there?
Right, the funding hasn't been transferred for that agreement now.
Once you
Right.
receive it though, is it not a binding agreement? Why would we not be able to enter it once you receive those funds?
Once everything is good to go with your construction agreement, and you have, and you would like to do the tree removal, we still have to have a flagger out there, or we still have to have track protection while you're working within the right of way. But then if it's the same contractor, whatever contractor is your contractor that, the prime contractor signs that Schedule I that's within the construction agreement and provides the proper insurance, and then whatever subcontractors he has working for him, that will suffice your insurance. Does that make sense? We have a Schedule I within that construction agreement that the contractor will sign, your prime contractor. Once that prime contractor signs that and provides us the insurance, then we'll be able to get in the right of way, but you'll still always have to have protection.
Okay, I think what we're talking about here is, the city wants to do this work before we hire the prime contractor to do the bridge construction. And so, if the city can show they have the insurance that is required, do you see any roadblocks to the city being able to request a right of entry? Once they prove they have the insurance.
No, but we could get the right of entry with whomever you would like to have the right of entry with.
Okay.
And then as long as they have the proper insurance, yes. I'm not saying that the
Yeah.
city or county cannot. I'm just talking in my experience, they normally
Right.
don't have that proper insurance.
Okay, well, that clears it up then.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and, we'll be in touch.
Okay, I will send you that information for the right of entry, so you have it.
Okay.
Okay.
Hang on.
Okay, one other thing, if we pay for that agreement, $386, they have to send us an invoice for it, okay?
Okay.
You need an invoice for, is it for the city of LaFollette, or
Yeah.
is it the county? The city, correct?
It's the city.
Okay, I couldn't remember, I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay, I can send you an invoice for that.
Okay, very good.
So Warren, I had one other question, cause I think you talked about the deposit or whatever have to be paid up front, but isn't that all based on an estimate? And the final cost is actually the actual cost, so then will they be reimbursed if it comes under? I didn't follow that whole scenario.
Yes, whatever the estimate is, you will send that amount in to CSX. Whatever funds are not used for the project will be reimbursed to the city.
Well, the reason we haven't paid it, because I think, in the, I guess the discussion before, they didn't need it, y'all didn't need it right now, so that's the reason and we didn't have an invoice, that's why we've not paid it or even asked for an invoice.
Yeah, I think the city was under the impression that they would pay, as per invoice on a periodical basis. They wouldn't pay everything up front, but, you know, as expenses and were incurred by CSX, you know, we would get invoices here at the city and then they would pay them off, but, okay. What it is you want the full amount paid off, which is a reimbursable expense.
Right, you'll pay up front, and then
Okay.
you'll get an invoice, I believe, please don't quote me on this,
Okay.
but you'll get an invoice, I believe, monthly from CSX, and they will bill you from that amount that you have deposited. Does that make sense? You're not gonna have to pay the amount,
But
it'll
it's
just
a
come out of your
reimbursable.
funds that you have deposited.
Wait, you might want to repeat that, Kelly.
Say that again.
Yeah, please.
If I'm correct on this, you will still get, you have your funds that you've deposited into CSX. And what they will do is, I believe, now don't quote me on this, but they will send you, like a statement of how many funds you have left each month in your account.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
On the drawdowns.
Oh, okay, that
Yeah.
does, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Say we only use half of that, how long is it gonna take the city to get their money back out of that account?
It usually takes 90 days.
90 days.
Once we process the closure and we ensure that all of the charges have come in, and it usually takes 90 days to get your refund.
Okay, I think that's it for now, Kelly. Appreciate your help.
Okay, anytime, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, that clears things up a little bit.
So that means we're staying with the original amount of days that we had, correct? Or are you all still proposing an additional 50 days?
That's up for debate, that's a
It's
good
up-
reason for this meeting, I believe.
Yeah. So we're thinking if we give them another 50 days, of course, that's a cost up front to the city.
Why would you have to give them an additional 50 days if we're doing the work?
Well, this is for the main project. We don't anticipate using more than maybe 2 days of flagging for the tree cutting. 2-3 days possibly.
Well, if we had to get a right of entry, whoever cuts the trees,
Yeah.
does that mean that when the contractor starts, he's gotta get a right of entry too before he can go in there?
Yes. But once he starts, then he has to keep going and finish the project. So, but the problem is he may not start before October 31st, which is the deadline for tree cutting. And if he can't get in, and that's the worry, that he couldn't get in, cut his trees, unless all the chips fell just right, you know, that could put a real delay in the project,
So are we on this contractor schedule?
After
this
October,
calendar?
before May,
March 31st.
March 31st, yeah.
Okay, March,
You said that, but.
I got it back.
They have to be
It's
cut before
it's
March.
already-
October 15th through March.
Thanks.
Because of the bats.
And that would be one reason to increase it, is because it's potentially money that won't be spent, that it will be reimbursed, so, you know.
Well,
But we don't need to do that, it's just, you know, it just, does
Right.
it give the contractor more flexibility? It may give him more flexibility, they feel like he can use those, so it may cost him, so.
Now, Kim, if we do increase by 50 days, that increases the cost, I think, by about $120,000 to the railroad agreement. Could we make all that reimbursable, a reimbursable expense? In other words, right now, I think the total is $389,000, and that would be, of course, a reimbursable expense. But if we increased it 50 days up to $500,000, with that total amount, could that be considered a reimbursable expense to the city?
It's a reimbursable expense regardless, it's just a matter of how much money you have paid. And the money,
Right.
sometimes, everything else, and I know Lisa has mentioned that the funds are out.
Yes.
Okay.
It it might be reimbursable, but even if they reimburse it, that just reduces the amount they're gonna have for construction.
Yes,
Correct.
that's right.
That won't help any.
No, it will not.
Right.
But again, if they don't use the extra 50 days,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
don't incur that cost
Oh,
either.
okay.
But now, how many of these people you ever seen don't use all of it? Everyone I've ever dealt with uses every dime of it plus some.
Yeah.
I'll plus the.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't believe that no more than I'm man on the moon.
Well, we could just keep the old agreement and don't use the extra 50 days. So we could stay with the 146 days. The fact that the city will be clearing the trees, that takes that element of uncertainty out of the main contract. So, maybe we don't need to give them an extra 50 days,
Well, the other thing is, whatever the amount that's over, the budget, the county's gonna have to pay their part, and they've never said what they're gonna do.
And the county's not there today?
No?
No, they were made aware to be here. Jack had told me that they had intended to be here, but nobody has showed up.
It's nothing new.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the 50 days is kind of it's on the fence. It may be better one way, maybe not, so, leaving it the same, I don't see a major problem with that.
Yeah. Right.
The one question is if the contractor should go over that, as the agreement, is it in the agreement or is it in the special note to the contractor? Says that anything used above that, over the 146, the contractor will be deducted that from his fees. So the way I see it, if he does think he has to go over that, if that's not enough time, then he's putting that in his contract. Plus, he's probably doubling it or adding a lot of risk to it. Whereas if the contract, and that would be the one benefit to putting the $50 or 50 days in up front, is that the city incurs the straight cost instead of some marked up cost to contractor. Now, that may not be enough to change it, just leave that as is, but that's the logic behind it.
It's a complicated scenario. It is.
So that's another question is, so do we keep the language the same that tells the contractor that anything over that 146 days or whichever days we end up with is on the contractor? I think the city needs some kind of protection in that regard, but I'm not sure the best way, if it's best just to leave it as is.
I've not been on this conversation.
Was that?
I've not had the privilege of being in this conversation over the years. But to me, all the city can do right now is get that lady insurance requirements, call and get us a rider and go to work. And we get that monkey off of the city's back. And that should help your contractor also.
That should, that may be the biggest help we could get the contractor.
Right.
Well, I know it's not gonna cost you an additional $127,000 to do that. There ain't no way.
Well, the next thing is, say you go ahead and do all that, then when the bid comes in and it's over the budget, which it probably will be, since it's, the 20% is split between us and the county, I already talked to them about it, and they wrote an invoice originally for $180,000, they've got $170 left on it, and they said they're obligated for that, but anything over that, they don't know what they're gonna do.
Yes.
Okay.
That the budget is a big, funding is a big thing, because we buy these things and hope that the costs come down, and I think, you know, if you get enough interest and you find the right contractor with these changes, there's a good chance it will come down. But if you don't have the money there, it's not gonna come down
Just a
without some more
guesstimate,
money, I don't believe.
just a guesstimate,
To the
what do
original
you
estimate.
think, if it's rebid, what do you think it'll come back in at? Just a guess.
I'd be real pleased if we could get it down $500,000 from where it was. It was about
So take it-
4.1 million it came in, I think, and the engineer's estimate was about 3 million and change. So if we
So
could
it
get,
would still leave a shared cost of, say, 750,000 to the city and the county to have, correct?
I think, well, I'm talking if we could get it down to 500,000.
Oh,
To share.
down to $500,000.
Right.
250,000 apiece.
Yeah, if we could share $500,000,
Cause the original come in right at almost 1.2 million. And if you take the tree removal, that's not gonna save you $500,000. So where's the other savings gonna be?
inconvenience to the contractor. And convenience, what I mean is that would allow him to schedule his start of construction later, you know. He wouldn't have to start by March to cut those trees down. And I'm just saying that, you know, if I'm a contractor, I may have this project that I'm just trying to finish up.
Right.
And I can't get started. It gives him that flexibility and his risk is lower. Now, we'll set that end date out there, maybe pick a date, you know, maybe, May of 2026, say. But still, if we only give him 240 calendar days, once he starts, he's gotta finish in those consecutive days. That's what my understanding.
So that's where all the inflated costs come from, the last bid. Is
Well,
what you're saying.
I mean,
Well,
the other thing
not all.
when Warren St. He, the contractor, in the past, we had two bidders. So
Yeah.
ideally, you're gonna need competition. So the idea is, hopefully, if you get 6 bidders, you've got one who's a little more hungry, and the competition brings the prices down. And, you know, the 2 bidders we already have, you know, they may sharpen their pencils, come down a little bit, but they may not change a lot, but if you hopefully find some other contractor who fits their schedule and they have a need, then, you know, that's, to me, that's where you gain the benefit, and till you bid it, you never know.
But from what I'm hearing, I think if we could get a commitment that we're gonna get these trees cut and all this insurance business is gonna work out, if we could get that commitment, we'd go ahead and rebid before we get the trees cut.
Yes, definitely.
And
Actually,
so
Casey and I'll go down there when we leave, when this meeting ends, Casey and I'll go down there, and then when I get back, I'll call the insurance company.
And I'm gonna be getting an email from Kelly Wisely on more specifics on the insurance, but I think it's right in the agreement now that Greg pointed out here a few minutes ago. But, so I think the plan is to, let's keep the old railroad agreement, not add 50 days to it. And hopefully, we can get better bids based on the calendar days. And the tree cutting. And hopefully get a few more bidders to build bring the bids down.
Are we gonna get any more invoices from anybody currently on this project until we figure out about the trees and everything?
Wait a second.
Now, is the trees gonna have to be cut on both, there's a graveyard on the other side of it, aren't there? Are the trees gonna have to be cut on both sides of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's in the county, the other side, is it not?
Yes. And I have,
You can't wait on them.
No, you can't.
I have a note
We can
here.
be in there now before they say anything.
I have a note from Lisa. She says the city can cut trees on the county right of way as long as they have a right of way agreement with the county to let them do the work. Wait a minute.
The county's real interested in it, cause you see them all here, don't you?
Actually, the city owns the right of way for the road,
Oh, that's right, yes.
so there is no county right of way.
Good deal.
So I think you're in the clear on that.
What are we talking about? I've never been down there,
Yeah.
to be honest.
You're fixing to be.
Well, I know. I mean, how many trees are we talking about?
On the
Half
railroad.
a half acre?
We cleared that much last month when the storm come through, with the electric department and everybody.
Let's see.
I mean,
I drew up a picture here for you.
That's true. And it'll be a high grant. This bid will come in.
and right now's a good time to get the insurance, because we're getting ready to sign the agreement for the new insurance. So the timing's perfect.
You saw that too.
Casey, you wanna come up here?
This is a picture.
No, not really.
Not really, I'm playing.
Secretary's over here. See the outline of the tree. We need to cut this in the green.
Robbie, do y'all wanna get a picture of this?
But it's called, comes up to half acre.
Hell, that ain't nothing.
There's no trees bigger than that.
Yeah, that ain't nothing, man.
You're right.
They're all small.
25%, that's what we're doing. You go out through there, the original has put away, you know, fix that tree down.
We've worked on that, we had to have flaggers.
Oh, yeah,
There's no large trees down
there's a few, it ain't, we can't do.
there. Sit down here.
You get the agreement, we'll do it.
Lisa or Sabina, do you all have any questions as we, getting near the end here, I think?
It'll be quick.
Huh?
It won't take long.
I do not have.
Well, you grew up more out here on the creek than that.
You can add on the side of the county and the city splitting funding.
That's between the city and the county.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have to get together, and they have to get their attorneys together and figure that out. I can't, nothing's coming from TDOT, from the county's money, so.
As far as
Yeah.
as far as the project is concerned, you know, it is definitely between the city and county, but, and I don't think that's gonna hold up rebidding at all. So, but that's something that needs to get worked out, obviously.
What was that? I wasn't listening.
Just the city-county agreement, as to the cost overrun payment and maintenance, that's something that doesn't really affect the
Yeah,
bid.
the
bid
attorneys are gonna have to work out an agreement on the maintenance of that building.
Yeah.
The city attorney and the county attorney will have to do that.
Right.
Did you ever think it'd be like this to build a bridge?
Over the railroad, yeah.
Where's this thing been since 2016?
I don't know when they started.
How long, when does this thing start, Warren?
2018,
18?
18.
No wonder I don't know about it.
It's taking some time.
Same with Beach Street started. So it started, so.
Well, I think we've got, as far as we can get here. And, anybody have any other thoughts or questions?
Just make sure you give me the information on that, insurance.
Insurance, okay, I will. That's the next step. Once we get that all worked out, then I think we'll look at, rebidding the project. Hopefully get more than 2 bids on this next go round.
Since this is a called meeting, Chuck, you still on there? Chuck?
I'm here.
With all the council being here, are you all good with me going ahead with the insurance company of, taking care of the insurance part of it?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you, Wayne? Wayne, are you good with me going ahead and getting the insurance company and getting the insurance situated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not one way back, deer season.
Why?
Somebody will be on deer season.
There's no inside.
All right, thank you all for, joining in.
Thank you.
And until the next time, we'll say, have a good afternoon.
All right, meeting's adjourned.